session is really the session that I wish everybody could have come to first, not just because I'm leading it, but because it really lays the foundation for what everything else is at this conference this week. And it also lays the foundation for what we're going to be working on together this school year. So is anyone right now sitting here confused about middle school transformation and what we're doing? I would expect more. I would expect more people to be confused because you've heard some things, you've heard implementation plan, you've heard schools to watch, you're hearing things kind of be dropped here and there, but you haven't yet been told or shown what the big picture is and how it all goes together. That's the purpose of this session. So, let's see, and my clicker doesn't work, so I apologize. This session is really to answer this question. What does all of this, all of these things that we keep throwing out there, what does it really mean for you and for your school? Whether you're a teacher, administrator, counselor, what do all these things that we keep throwing out there really mean, and how is it going to affect your day-to-day work? More importantly, how is it going to affect the kids in your school? Okay, so hopefully by the time you leave this session in the next 70 minutes or so, we'll meet these three goals, okay? First of all, I want to make sure that by the time you leave, you can identify the 4 components of exemplary middle schools as defined by Schools to Watch. You've seen that, some this morning, you've seen some graphics. If you've flipped through your binders at all, you've seen that they're in there, and we're going to reference those in a little bit, but I want to make sure that when you leave this session, everybody could say the 4 big areas of Schools to Watch, and then we're going to get a little bit more deeply involved in those during this session. I'm going to pass out later on in the session some data that you all contributed to. If you remember, anybody remember in January doing a self-study at your school? Anybody? It was a Survey Monkey. It asked a lot. It was kind of long. Okay. If you don't remember, I've got that data for you. And this was something that every teacher and every principal and every counselor, everybody in the building was supposed to complete. What you may or may not have known at the time was that this data and what the self-study was asking is directly aligned with the Schools to Watch criteria. So we were trying to assess the schools and see, where are you right now? If you wanted to apply to be a lighthouse school to watch right now, would you get it? Or is there some work that still needs to be done? We've compiled that data. We have it here for you. We're going to give it out and ask you to grapple with it. So that's the second goal, that we want you to be able to identify areas of strength and challenge based on that self-study data. Finally, towards the end, I want to make sure that you are able to explain how to create an implementation plan for your school to guide your school to the Schools to Watch designation. The implementation plan is the way MST is going to help you and help your school work towards the designation of a School to Watch, okay? And we'll get to that at the end, and that's also in your binder. If your school is not ready this year, you shouldn't apply. But if you're ready 3 years from now, we would strongly encourage you to apply, because it's kind of a win-win to apply. Even if you apply and don't get it, once you're ready, you get feedback from the Schools to Watch visiting committee that gives you excellent strategies for how to improve in some areas that were weak. So even if you apply and don't get it, you still get a bunch of information that can help your school. So is it optional? Yes. Is it strongly encouraged? Yes. Is the time frame open? Yes. Okay. No, your time frame is your time frame. So for Brown, when Brown is ready, Brown applies, if you choose to. If that's in 5 years, it's 5 years. If it's in 1 year, it's 1 year. Our best guess is that across the district, it's going to span those years. That's our best guess. And we can kind of come back to it, but it's your time frame, okay? And please ask questions as we go, absolutely. Okay. All right, you've seen this graphic, but just to break it down a little more, this is a Schools to Watch graphic. So you've all heard by this point in time that there are 4 criteria for Schools to Watch. Hopefully you've also heard that Schools to Watch falls under the umbrella of the National Forum to Accelerate Middle Grades Reform, okay? Schools to Watch says that exemplary middle schools demonstrate these 4 characteristics. They are academically excellent, they are developmentally responsive, and they are socially equitable. And while meeting all of those criteria, they have the structures, norms, and processes in place to support each of those 3 areas. Okay? So those are the 4 criteria. All right, that's the big picture. Yeah. The bottom one, that bottom bar with the 3 arrows up is one area. That's the organizational structures, norms, and processes. So that's area 1. And you don't have this graphic, but you do have this session is behind the orange page, and I'm going to guide you through those handouts in a minute. Okay, so if you find the orange tab in your binder, okay, you got it? Okay. So this 3 circles are the 3 areas, and then this whole big long one is one area, and that's the organizational piece. Okay? The thing about Schools to Watch is this, and this is so important. There are a lot of organizations that identify exemplary schools, right? You can be a blue ribbon school, you can be this, that, or the other. APS has chosen Schools to Watch to be the model that we want to follow because it is bigger than just that top circle. It is one of the few organizations that recognizes the whole school. Just like we want schools to teach to the whole child, Schools to Watch is the whole school. It's not just about test scores. There are some schools with phenomenal test scores that don't become a school to watch. And they don't become a school to watch usually because of these 2. They lack in being developmentally responsive and in being socially equitable. What happens when you apply to become a Lighthouse School to Watch is that a visiting team comes to your school. They spend two and a half days at your school. They speak to every single adult in the building, every single one. You know how a visiting committee could come and you could kind of choose your best teachers and choose people that are going to say all the good things? You can't do that with Schools to Watch. There's no hiding. If you're an adult in that building, they will speak to you. So they get the whole picture. And they will not give you the designation if you don't meet all these criteria, which we're going to get into in a little bit. They speak to kids. One of their favorite questions to ask kids is when they go in a classroom, "What are you learning today?" She answers, and then they say, "Why are you learning that?" Those are telling questions to ask students, and their responses are telling. That's their favorite, their favorite 2. What are you learning, and why is it important? Or why are you learning this? Okay? They do a really thorough look at your school when they come, which is why, again, to answer your questions, we say don't apply unless you're ready, okay? Because it's going to be a really in-depth look at your school. And again, just to go back, academic excellence is important, but being responsive to the developmental needs of adolescents, having an environment where every class is rigorous, not just the advanced classes, where every child is getting exposed to a challenging and rigorous curriculum, that is the social equity piece. Those are just as equally important as the academic excellence. So it's not all about the test score, okay?
How is it different, or is it the same as being a national blue ribbon school?
It is different. That is it, and I don't know what Blue Ribbon falls under, but it is different. It's a whole different organization, yes.
Which one is the highest?
I don't know. I don't know that they're, I think they're just different. I think they're just different, yeah. Okay. Yes? How long do they say when they come to visit? It's roughly 2 days. Mm-hmm. And you also fill out, and you'll get this later, it's, you do an extensive application. It's a long narrative. One of the things, and we'll come back to this later, you do it's an extensive narrative that you submit. When they come into your school, they are literally taking that narrative and they're saying, show me. You know, so it's not, you can't just talk the talk and say, oh, of course all of our students are challenged. They want, show me, show me, show me. It's very evidence-based. So they take that whole narrative, the whole application, and then they come and they try and see if it really pans out in day-to-day life. It's a scheduled visit, yes. It's a scheduled visit. Mm-hmm. It's a scheduled visit. You know when they're coming, but what you cannot do is tell them where they can and cannot go. They will go everywhere. Yeah. Yes?
This morning in the big session, one of the presenters mentioned that they had gone to a particular school.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We invited all the principals to go to designated schools to watch schools to visit with us. And many of them have come and have visited schools. The MST team has visited a number of schools. The MST team is actually also on visiting committees to go visit other schools and deem them either a school to watch or not. And I know, Dr. Saunders, you were with us. Feel free to chime in here if you choose. There's something about these schools. It is incredible. Most recently, we went to 4 schools to watch schools in very different areas of Georgia. But you walked in, they all felt the same. It was unbelievable. There is a feel about schools that meet these criteria that we're going to go into in a moment. You feel it from the time you enter that school building. We're going to try and define it through this session today, but there is something about them. When a school has, back to the other slide, all those things in place, and equally so, it's apparent. Yeah. Yeah, no, you don't have to be your last.
How many people are on this team that comes into your school?
There are, it's not always the same, but roughly like 8. But it'll vary. It might be fewer or not. Yes, sir.
Did you all visit schools with similar demographics as ours?
Some yes and some no. Yeah, some yes and some no. We visited, I think you were with us in Alpharetta, correct?
The school that I visited did
Was not, right. Right, the school, so one of them, and I think that was, I would say the most different, was Webbridge, and actually the principal's next door of Webbridge, not at all similar. And then we visited the other 3 that, yes, similar. So that's one of the biggest things, is a lot of people will say, well, they can do that there because they have resources, they have parents who are involved. There are a lot of barriers. But what we saw and what you see, you can also go on the Schools to Watch website and pull up all these schools. You will find schools like yours, and you will see that it can be done in schools like yours. It's different, but some of the things, it's not, you're going to see they're major because they're important, but some of it's small tweaks. And that's what we're going to kind of work through going through some of these criteria.
And I think if I can kind of time in one of the things that we do very, very concerned about the makeup of the children that we instruct. One of the things they said was to build schools to watch a school does not necessarily have to be a very, very, very high performing school academically, but it must be at a state of showing considerable progress, making progress, and moving towards that point of excellence.
That is actually a really important point. They use the phrase over and over again, a sustained trajectory towards improvement. That is what they want to see. They don't want to, they're not worried that if they go into your school, everything doesn't have to be perfect, but there has to be a sustained trajectory towards improvement. You have to be able to show, we know that this area is weak, but here's what we're doing. That's what they're checking to see, okay? They're not looking for perfection, okay? Absolutely. All right, I want us to spend some time getting a little bit more into these categories because you've seen them and you've seen the graphic, but what do they really mean, okay? So we're going to deal with the three that we're in circles right now, which are the academic excellence, the developmental responsiveness, and the social equity. What I'm going to ask you to do at your tables, these are in your binder. It's the first pages after the orange sheet. I want you to spend a moment reading the description, and I'm going to assign you just one per table. I want you to read the description, and then I want you to try with your group to boil that description down to one sentence. If you had to boil down what academic excellence is after reading this to one sentence, what would it be? You're welcome to pull words from there to construct your sentence. That's okay. But boiling it down to one sentence, I'm going to bring you a big piece of chart paper to write your sentence on. Okay? And we're going to try and do this in 10 minutes or less. So I'm going to have this table work on academic excellence. If y'all would work on developmentally responsive, if y'all would work on social equity, and y'all choose which one because you're going to be a repeat.